Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the B2B Marketing Asia podcast. I'm your host, Joe Escobedo. Joining me today is Shahin Hoda, who's going to share a little bit more about ABM, and he's going to be sharing a case study on how he was able to generate $1.2 million in pipeline in only 4 weeks. So Shahin, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the program you're running.
Marketing approach that we ran with a client of ours in the technology space, technology services space. They were a technology service provider where they were targeting upper mid-market organizations. And yeah, we ran a campaign and yeah, the results were great.
I'd love to hear, I'm sure the viewers would love as well too, if you could take us maybe behind the scenes. What are some of the things that you did to start the program?
Yeah, one of the key components that, and we learned this over running multiple ABM campaigns, is that we started with a warm-up process. So obviously we knew the target accounts and the individuals that we wanted to target. We worked on what do we want to tell them, what is the message that we want to send to them. And then we started with a warm-up process, building brand awareness within those accounts. And that was mainly through advertising. We didn't have a lot of budget for that kind of activity, but going through the advertising and making sure that those individuals and those accounts are familiar with what we're trying to do or what our client is trying to do and who they are and what their brand is, so that when the outreach starts, there would be brand awareness and some sort of brand recognition from the perspective of these prospects. And they would be like, oh, I've seen this brand, not sure where I've seen it, but I'm happy to have a conversation with them. And we've seen that has a lift of about 20% or so in terms of booking meetings and having connections with prospects. That's where it started. And we did the warm up with the accounts, and we then moved into a activation motion where we worked very closely with the sales team from our client side. And again, as I said, we had a multi-threaded, meaning that we reached out to multiple individuals in those organizations that we're targeting, and a multi-channel approach where we were leveraging phone calls, we were leveraging email, we were leveraging advertising channels, we were leveraging direct mail, both dimensional and direct mail itself. We're leveraging all these channels and LinkedIn to get a hold of these decision makers and get in front of them.
So on the advertising side, I'd love to hear what are some of the things that worked and maybe didn't work. Was it essentially just uploading the list because you had the list of accounts and maybe personas, uploading that into LinkedIn, and then yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that process first off, and then we talk about more of the activation.
Yeah, one of the approaches that we take with warm up of accounts is that our objective is not to generate leads. Our objective is not for people to fill in forms. If that happens, that's cream on top, but that's not our objective. As I said, it's brand recognition, brand awareness. And we leveraged LinkedIn. We also leveraged a IP targeting tool to target those accounts. And we knew the departments of who we're targeting. We knew the account. So we didn't upload, we just identified the accounts, and we then talked about the departments that we want to target within those accounts. And that was where the advertising started. It was the message around that was all educational. It was basically problem solution focused. We wanted them to consume content, not to fill any forms or anything like that. So we started from there and then expanded.
So I love the idea of warming them up, particularly if it's not a household name. So for example, if it's a Salesforce or Oracle or Adobe, like most folks have probably heard of those organizations, but if it's maybe one of the challenger brands where they haven't heard, I think this concept of warming up can be super important. And also, like you said, the goal here was education, not necessarily to fill out the forms, which I wish more B2B brands were doing that in general, instead of just trying to gate things and push it out that way. So I'm glad to hear that you're able to convince the client to do that. But I guess it works in tandem with the other side, which is the activation, which I'd love to hear more about. Because you talked about emails and calling and things like that. But I'd love to hear, was there a particular channel or style that worked best in terms of reaching some of these folks?
Yeah, and that's a question that a lot of people ask, and I feel the objective that they ask is, oh, okay, if that's the channel that works best, let's just do that. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. We found that the more channels that we introduce in a campaign, the higher the success of it.